Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Slumber Party podcast. I'm Amanda, and today we're with Kyla, and I'm so excited about this topic because I mostly am just surprised I haven't hit this topic yet because it does come up so much in the work that I do. Kyla, thank you so much. Now, Kyla is you'll see if you're watching this, not if you're listening. Kyla does not have her screen on because Kyla is a smart woman and is doing this podcast anonymously. So she's not shaming any of her family members. And I think that's smart. So if you're wondering,
Thank you.
hey, why is Amanda doing this podcast with a black screen? It is intentional. We do know, and it's okay. Welcome, Kyla.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're on the seat of our pants. You wrote me about talking about parental involvement
Yes.
in any sort of sleep work or parenting for that matter. And by parental I mean like our parents, our
Yes.
own parents. And I'm so annoyed that I've never talked about that before because it is such an underlying thing for everyone. Like it is something that does come up quite a bit. So I would love for you to jump in and kind of like share your experiences.
Yes.
And then I'll kind of jump in.
Okay. So let me start by saying that I love my mother-in-law. We have a
We
wonderful
all do.
relationship. Yes, of course.
I do love my mother-in-law a lot though. We're a lot alike. So I'm not just saying that. Like we are, I legitimately don't have mother-in-law issues. I
Right.
know you hear that it's like a thing. It's like, oh, mine's so nice, and she gives great hugs.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cute.
I
So I
know.
do love mine very much too, genuinely, and I don't have any issues with her. And she gives me so much support, and she gives me wonderful solicited advice. And I know that she has the best intentions um, for me and for her new grandchild. But as a first
Mm-hmm.
time mom, the unsolicited advice can sometimes be quite much.
Right.
So
Yeah.
when my baby was 6 months, I was still breastfeeding her. And she would say things like, "Your baby's a big girl now. Why are you still breastfeeding her?" Or, "My baby is understanding that she can get comfort from me, and I shouldn't be comfort feeding her if she cries when I know that she's hungry and that's why she's crying." Um, and that I should be giving her regular milk at 6 months old. And you start to feel that you're doing something wrong. I'm a new mom. She told me that at 6 months she was giving her kids milk, and my husband is completely fine. But, you know, I would,
And
I
by
would,
the way, isn't that the best, right? Like when someone's like, "Well, I did it and I'm fine," and you're like, "Are
right,
you
like 40
really?"
years ago.
Yeah. I'm pretty
uh,
sure there's also BPA in bottles at that time. Like there's a lot that we were doing.
right, exactly. So, you start to question yourself, and you start to wonder if you're doing something wrong, because obviously she did something right. And obviously, you look at yourself and you start to judge yourself in a sense. And then I was speaking to one of my friends who her 7-month-old baby wasn't sleeping through the night, and spoke to her grandmother about it, who basically fully mom shamed her, like, "You're not giving your kid enough solids, and how is your baby not sleeping through the night?" And that made her feel, like a horrible mother, that at 7 months her
Yeah.
baby needs feeds over the night as per the doctor.
Yeah.
And so it's just, yeah, I mean, I think that they mean well. They don't mean to mom
Mhm.
shame you, but how do
Mhm.
you deal with that, and have the confidence in yourself and not question yourself for all this unsolicited advice?
Yeah, it's so hard, right? Especially because I think it, you know, just to go back to the point, and I totally believe you when you say I have a great relationship with my mother-in-law, because I actually think that's when it's the most problematic or like painful. It's like, oh, I thought we were good and I respect you so much and I respect your opinion. And I just really I want you to continue to like me. So
Right.
when there's
Yeah.
these, yeah, like it would be painful almost. And at the same time, the parent is obviously not trying to shame you. Like they think that they're helping. Like, and
Right.
here, okay, I'm going to answer this question, but I'm also going to be honest about something that I've noticed about myself, is that I think that
Yeah.
the farther you get from the baby phase, the more you romanticize it, or you think you were so cool. I put myself in this. It's just like, why is everyone so worried when their baby gets up for a few minutes in the middle of the night? Like, whatever. It's like, I know that because I have two older kids that are fine and survived. And this is also my job now. But every once in a while, I have to be like, no, you were a fucking wreck. If your kids did anything, like, stop lying to yourself, stop being too cool for school. And I'm always checking myself. And I think our parents are the ultimate versions of that. Like, these are people who are like, look at me. I have parented these wonderful children who are now like successful, wonderful 40-year-olds or whatever. And I did that. So let me help you. I really do think that that is where it comes from. Like, look, you don't need to worry about that because I know what the outcome is. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And in the end, it's this amazing child. Look at them. So there's that part.
Right.
I think
Right.
the toughest part, and for sure, like I've had advice from my parents and my in-laws as well. One of the things, like going back to the like get over yourself, Amanda, like 38-year-old, two older children, Amanda is a very different Amanda, like 7 years ago when I just had my baby. I am a different person.
Of
I
course.
parent a lot differently.
Of course.
And I think about those times where we made a parenting decision. So maybe it was around like sleep, or maybe it was around like feeding or something very similar to what you're saying. And I would feel so
Hmm.
anxious having to like even bring it up or discuss it in case, and it wasn't anything my in-laws actually said or my parents said. It was more like I was worried that they would judge me for it, and
Yeah.
or be like, oh,
Yeah.
I hope they like it. Like, judge is the wrong word. Like, oh, I hope they don't have any thoughts. And for the most part, like, everyone kind of kept to themselves. um I do think that there's something about that energy that you bring into the conversation or the room that can
Hmm.
make it super awkward, because then
Yeah.
it's like, for breastfeeding, for example. So, your mother-in-law makes this passing comment. Now, every time you breastfeed in front of your mother-in-law, now you have this thought like, what does she think about this? What did, and there's like
100%.
this, yeah, there's
Yes,
like a
totally.
narrative that's
And you
happening.
almost don't want to feed her in front of them,
Yes,
or, because it's like, oh, is she going to say, why are you feeding her? But it's like lunchtime and she should be eating that right now.
totally. And so I really want to share this story because I think this is like encapsulates everything. And
Yeah.
I've asked permission to discuss this from my brother-in-law prior, and he's fine with this. So my brother-in-law had a previous marriage, and it was like, a chilled out dad. Like, he so my husband's sister and him had a baby 3 weeks before I had Winnie, my first. So we had like kids extremely close in age. And my
Hmm.
brother-in-law, being like a seasoned father, was like, chill out. And I was like, I'm fine. I was not fine. Um, I also had gone back to, I went back to work pretty early, and my like Winnie, my first was going through like some pretty tough teething. Like, actually, this is such a like vivid
Oh,
time in my parenting journey. It was so awful. I was back at work. She was up all night. I was exhausted. It was Christmas, and we all had this like Christmas dinner. And I remember Winnie would not nap at all at this place. And being the first time parent I was like, oh my God, she's never going to nap. And if she misses a snap, the whole world is going to blow up. And unfortunately, I didn't have someone like me to walk around being like, no, that's not a thing. Don't worry about it. That doesn't happen. Baby skip naps sometimes. You'll be fine. And she was fine, and so was I. But anyway, she's not napping.
right.
And I remember my brother-in-law sort of said, like, hey, look, like, just don't worry about it. And I went fucking ballistic. Okay. Which is so embarrassing. And we're all fine with this now. But this is just such a like, I was already worried because I knew that like I was this new parent, and then I think I might have been feeling insecure that like my brother-in-law was there and he was the cool parent and I was the crazy parent, and I was like, I'm not the crazy parent, like I'm fine. And then I totally like ended up like perfectly like even worse or more so uh acting out my worst nightmare, because I
Yes,
went in with this story and this energy. um I
right.
basically, it was like, you don't tell me what to do, and this is how we parent, which is so crazy for me to have done that. Anyway, I almost left because I was so embarrassed. Everyone was like, no, you should stay. It's fine. It was all good. I called him the next day. He laughed. I got over it. But why I tell that story is because I manifested my own reality. And my brother in law didn't actually
Yeah,
give a shit about how I was parenting. And like
right.
he was just like trying to help me chill out when I was obviously a 10 out of 10. I'm not saying you're a 10 out of 10, but what I should have done and what I advise my clients to do is like if I was feeling uncomfortable, I should have maybe had a
Hmm.
conversation beforehand about maybe some of my worries. I always like to get it out in the open and not the day you're
Hmm.
visiting or the moment you're in the room. Maybe have a conversation beforehand and be like, hi, I know that we've talked about breastfeeding. Now it's in my head that you might judge me when I do that. I know that I'm probably wrong, but I just want to let you know I want to feel comfortable breastfeeding around you, and I really respect your opinion. And it can be something as
Right.
easy as that. It could even be like, hey, I just want to talk about what we're doing in terms of sleep, because sleep especially is a hot topic, as you refer to your friend. um, a lot of parents
Yes.
have a lot of feelings about sleep. Like if you were to, my mom is like, I don't know what you do. I'm like, I know, like I know. She's like, I just, when I had you, we just put you in the crib and then you cried for like a bit and then you never did that again. I was like, I know, but that's not the way it is today, mom. And she's like, okay.
Right.
So it's hard for her to understand. But I think like our parents come from a different generation of where, number
Yes.
one, we were probably like trotted all over to every social event that our parents went to, which I don't necessarily think is a bad
Right.
thing. But I think that our parents think that we're a very uptight generation. So I'm a big fan of like having the pre-call. Like if you're going to visit for a holiday or you're coming in from out of town, it's always good to be like, hey, this is what we'd love to do for sleep. This is the sleeping arrangements. This is what we'll be doing. I just don't want to have any weird conversations when they're there. Like, do you have any questions? Or I want to explain what we're doing. Because
Hmm.
I personally think it just kind of like lessens that pressure in the room when you're there. You show up, you're like, I said my piece. Now I have permission to do what I want and however I want. And then your parents or your in-laws or whoever, your poor brother-in-laws, know maybe not to bring that topic up because it might be sensitive to you.
Right.
Oh, thank God he's a really nice man, and he was just like, yeah, that's fine. I remember when there was like another gathering because it was Christmas, and I saw him, and I was like, I just want to let you know that I'm really sorry. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm fine. That's fine. Don't worry about it.
I know we obviously manifest and think about it more than anyone else, but as a new mother, you're getting all this thrown at you and feel so judged and feel like you're doing the wrong thing
Yeah.
when
Well,
really
I
you're
always
not.
think no, and it just, whenever you are acting in a way that is not in line with what you want to do or how you actually feel, this goes for every single possible scenario: parenting, work, anything. If you're doing shit and acting in a way that you don't feel is authentic to you, you will start to feel resentment. You will start to feel anxiety and pushback. And that creates an energy for yourself. It creates um, tension that everyone can feel. And part of it is like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just be really confident in your parenting decisions. But as a new parent, it's not that easy to be that confident because you're not that confident. You're like,
Right. Exactly.
I just became a parent 6 months ago. I don't know
Right.
what I'm
And am I
doing.
feeding my
Yeah.
baby too much? But she seems happy and she sleeps through the night and she's all good. So am I feeding her too much? Maybe I am. And then
Yeah.
you spiral.
I
Yeah.
I would totally spiral. I would totally spiral, have spiraled. Even like if it's not family, like friends who have different parenting practices, you're just like, so awkward. I hope we don't like have a weird fight about this. But I think so. To go
Right.
back, I wrote this blog like 2 or 3 years ago, and it was called like how to say ho 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 and no no no, because it is hard to say that. Like I did have my first that first Christmas I refer to, where like people always want to pass on the baby, or they'll be like, oh, the baby's not tired yet. You have to be like, well, they're tired, they might not show but it does take practice to show that assertiveness
It
with your
does.
parents. And it doesn't mean that you
Yeah.
have to yell and scream at them like I did. I actually don't recommend that. But have practice and maybe have that call ahead to explain if you do suspect that there will be any pushback. And really, it's a muscle. It's just like, no thanks. This is what we're doing right now. And guess what? It's going to feel weird in that moment to have to say no thanks to your family. It'll feel really weird.
Yeah.
You'll get a rush of like, oh God, I did
Yeah.
it. And then what they do is they go, oh yeah, okay, the end. Truly. That is what I've learned.
It's as
Can I
easy as that.
I have to tell you, like, in my whole existence, what I learned in my 30s, I am 38. Am I 38? Yes, I am 38. Okay, I had to figure that out. I just turned 38. In my 30s, what I have learned is that no one gives a shit about you the way you do, in not in that way, but like, you being assertive will not make anyone go crazy or hate you. Like, we have built
Right.
this up, and by the way, when we are not assertive and we don't say what we actually want, and we are being dishonest with ourselves, that actually creates resentment in you, in your body. It eats away at you,
Right.
and resentment becomes
Yeah.
anger. Anger becomes tension, and that's when you start to get to the yucky zone. So it's so much easier for you to just practice, or write a letter, or write an email, and just practice that calm, kind assertiveness. And I really don't think your parents or family members or brother-in-law would really see that as like a sad or bad thing. What do you think? Do you think your
Right.
mother-in-law
I
would be
think
open to that
I think that they would
conversation?
appreciate I mean, I think she would appreciate the honesty.
Yeah.
And, but, I do think that she can kind of be old school in her ways, like, well, no, you shouldn't be breastfeeding still. But if I would say, but that's what we're doing, I think she would accept
Mhm.
that. Um,
And even if you were to say, we're just going on what our doctor recommends, there's so
I've
much
said
advice
that.
out
I
there.
have said
And
that.
yeah, you're
I blame
like, that's
everything
in
on the
my
doctor.
arsenal. Oh, me too. So much, so much. 100%. No,
Yeah.
I'm laughing because yes, 100%. I do that all the time. Um, yeah. So I feel like it's a matter of, um, it's a muscle, and the more cool you are about it, the cooler they will be too. It's like, yeah,
Yeah,
sure. Like, oh, they're not really bothered. It's like it just breaks the ice and the tension.
for sure.
And so the other thing that we haven't really discussed is like sleep training specifically,
Right.
and because sleep training, you know, gets a lot of nasty looks sometimes.
Mhm.
You're going to have people who are 100% in or 100% out.
So
I wish
true.
there were more people in the middle.
Right.
But I find like what can be really tricky is, maybe it's day 2 of sleep training, and mom or dad has put the baby down in their crib and they're crying, and the in-laws are there, or the parents are there, and there's so much advice, and like, how do you let your baby cry? Oh my gosh, how is this happening? I'm going to advise strongly to not have your parents present unless they're supportive and you've
Right.
explained prior what sleep training is, what's going to happen, that you have a plan for intervention, this is what it's going to look like, nobody is leaving the baby gets lots of love and attention. And so I do think it's best to kind of do that on your own, unless, and that's not obviously, like, I've had so many wonderful parents, like grandparents, who have been actually really helpful in the process, and help their child.
Right.
That's just not the case for everyone. If you, I don't recommend sleep training while you're vacationing, or like
No.
house sharing. I know you're laughing, but I get so many
No.
people who are like, we're going to the cottage. We thought we'd sleep train. I'm like, how many other families are going to be there? And they're like, 5. I'm like, nope, I will not do that to you, or
Or
don't do that.
anyone else trying to enjoy their cottage vacation.
Oh yeah, there's that too. Yeah. So you definitely don't want to be inviting that feedback at a time that's already very challenging.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
no parents. No
No.
parents
Definitely
in
not
sleep
for that part.
training. No. For like, please. Um, good. Kyla, was that helpful?
It
What do you
was. It
think
was. It
your
kind of
next steps
empowers
are?
me to make me, it makes me feel like I'm empowered and I can go and do this.
Good, good. You can. And I'm on the other side, and I can talk very openly and freely with everyone about our parenting decisions, and I don't really even think about it anymore.
Right.
But you're going to get a lot of advice around sleeping, eating.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the other ones. Like, a lot of sleep is a big one. I always hear grandparents say they're just not tired yet. I'm like, oh my God. Yes, they
But
are.
you don't know, I'm with them all the time, every day.
That's the other thing. Yeah, you have a PhD in your child. You are
Right.
the person who would know best.
Right.
Well, I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope people can take
Yeah.
away
Thanks
some
for having
real
me.
tangible strategies, and some like what to do's and what definitely not to do. Don't yell at your
Yes.
brother-in-law at Christmas. No one cares about this as much still as I do, but I can't believe I did that. That's all. Um, for anyone else, you can check out the blog on this topic. In I forget, it's like Ho 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 and No 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 is the title. If you want to take a look at that, I recount the story there. Send me a DM on Instagram. Let me know how you're coping with all of the advice that you're getting. You can find me at instagram.com/babiesbestsleep. If you need help in the sleep department, you can also book a call with a member of our team at babiesbestsleep.com. We'll get to know everything that's going on and give you the best strategies so that by the time you are having your cottage weekend, your baby will be sleeping and you don't have to have these conversations. You'll be like, this is a total side note, Kyla. I don't know if you're at the point of like, I have so many of my client parents who are like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you're sleep training," and then at the end, their baby sleeps like a dream, and then that
Yeah.
parent is walking around bragging about how well their grandchild sleeps.
Right. Right.
That could be you at the next family adventure.
Amazing.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Please leave a comment, comment, subscribe, share with a friend. All of it helps. And have a great sleep. Bye.